It was a Tuesday night in March 2025. Martin Gauthier, owner of a plumbing company in Quebec City, had just shut down his computer for the night. 18 employees, 400 active clients, 1.8 million in annual revenue. Everything was running smoothly. He had built his business over 12 years, one client at a time, one contract at a time, one harsh Canadian winter after another. Martin knew his clients by their first names. He knew that Mrs. Tremblay on Cartier Street had a recurring issue with her water heater, that Raymond's restaurant had its plumbing completely redone last summer. All of that was in his system. His data was the beating heart of his business. Until 2:47 in the morning. At 2:47 a.m., one of his employees, connected to the company network from home, clicked a link in an email that appeared to come from Revenu Quebec. The message was flawless. The official logo, the impeccable formatting, a reference to a pending tax refund. Everything looked legitimate. Except it was not Revenu Quebec. It was ransomware, a malicious program designed to hold your data hostage. Within 45 minutes, every single file in the company was encrypted. The accounting records. The invoices. The client data. The tax filings. The payroll. Everything. Every document, every folder, locked behind a wall of cryptography that was impossible to crack. The next morning, Martin walked into the office with his coffee. He opened his computer. A red message on a black background filled the entire screen. Your data has been encrypted. Pay $50,000 in Bitcoin within 72 hours or everything will be permanently deleted. Martin felt his stomach drop. He called his IT technician. The answer was brutal. It is ransomware. Everything is locked. Do we have a recent backup? Martin's last backup was 6 months old. 6 months. His accounting software stored everything locally, on a server in the broom closet of his office, with no encryption, no particular protection. His password had been the same since 2019. The name of his business followed by the year. Plumbing 2019. Martin lost $87,000. Not just the ransom, which he ended up partially paying. The weeks of rebuilding, the clients who left because they did not want to wait, the emergency accountant hired at a premium, the cybersecurity specialist brought in to patch the holes. And he nearly closed his business. 12 years of work, almost erased in a single night. This story is fictional. But it is based on dozens of real cases in Quebec every single year. Entrepreneurs like Martin who thought cybersecurity was a problem for big corporations. Owners of hair salons, auto repair shops, accounting firms, restaurants, construction companies. Ordinary people with ordinary businesses who got hit by extraordinary attacks. People who never imagined they would be a target. People who thought their antivirus was enough. People who had never even heard the word ransomware until it destroyed everything they had built. And the question you should be asking yourself right now is not whether it could happen to you. The question is whether you are ready if it does. Let us talk about the reality as it stands. In Canada, 1 in 5 small and medium businesses has been the victim of a cyber attack in the last 12 months. That means on your commercial street, in your industrial park, there are businesses around you that have been attacked. And among those that get hit seriously, 60% close their doors within 6 months. Not because they lack willpower. Because they lack data. When you lose your accounting, your invoices, your client history, you lose your ability to operate. The most common types of attacks against small businesses are not science fiction. It is ransomware, like what happened to Martin. It is phishing, those fraudulent emails that imitate legitimate institutions. It is data theft, where a hacker enters your system and copies your client's information to resell on the dark web. It is simple, it is effective, and it is automated. Hackers use bots that scan millions of businesses simultaneously. They are not looking for a specific target. They are looking for the easiest door to open. And that is exactly why small businesses are prime targets. Less budget for IT security. Employees less trained to recognize threats. Older systems, less frequently updated. Passwords written on sticky notes stuck to the monitor. Software that has not been updated in months, sometimes years. No incident response plan. No internal security policy. Nothing. 0 layers of protection between the hacker and the data that keeps the business alive. The majority of small Canadian businesses think it cannot happen to them. We are too small to be a target. We have nothing interesting to steal. We are just a little local business. But that is precisely the point. Hackers know that small businesses invest less in security. That their doors are easier to open. And the data of a small business is worth gold on the black market. Social insurance numbers, banking information, addresses, phone numbers. Multiply that by 400 clients, and you have a treasure for a cybercriminal. That is exactly what Martin thought too. And that is exactly what hackers are counting on you to think. Now, let us go back to Martin's story. Because every mistake he made is a lesson. And if you pay attention, you will never have to learn these lessons the way he did. First lesson. Encryption. If Martin's data had been encrypted with a serious protocol, the ransomware would have encrypted data that was already encrypted. The result? Data that was doubly protected, and a hacker left holding a completely useless file. Encryption is your first line of defense, and probably the most important one. But what exactly is encryption? Imagine a safe. Not just any safe. A safe with a combination of 78 digits. 78. To crack it by trying every possible combination, even with the most powerful computers on the planet, the ones that fill entire warehouses, it would take longer than the age of the universe. Literally. We are talking billions upon billions of years. That is AES 256 encryption. It is the standard used by governments, banks, and the military. And the most impressive part is that all of this happens transparently. You do not notice a thing. The software speed is not affected. It runs in the background, invisible but always active. Like a silent alarm system watching over your house 24 hours a day. Forge Tech applies this level of encryption to all your data. Not just when it travels over the internet. At rest too. Every time you enter a transaction, create an invoice, or generate a month-end report, it is encrypted before it is even saved. Your data sits inside a permanent vault. Even if someone physically stole the server, they would have a block of unreadable data. Completely useless without the key. Think about that for a second. You work, you do your bookkeeping, you enter your transactions, and the whole time, in the background, every piece of data is automatically transformed into an unbreakable code. It is like writing in a diary with ink that only you can read. Nobody else. Not a hacker, not a competitor, not even someone with physical access to the hardware. Just you and the people you authorize. But Martin had another problem. A problem that most business owners do not even know exists. His old accounting software used a shared database. That means every business using the same cloud provider was stored in the same database. The same container. The same space. When the hacker got into Martin's system, he did not just gain access to Martin's data. He gained access to every business stored in the same location. One single entry point, dozens of victims. It is like living in a condo building where every unit has the exact same key. The same lock, the same mechanism. If someone manages to get into one apartment, they get into all of them. You feel safe in your condo? Maybe you should not. At Forge Tech, we do things differently. Every business gets its own database. Completely isolated. Its own key. Its own lock. Your unit is separated from the neighbors by reinforced concrete walls, not drywall partitions. If a problem occurs with another client, if a breach happens somewhere else, your data stays untouched. This is what we call data isolation, and it is non-negotiable when we are talking about serious security. Now, let us talk about the backup. Martin's backup was 6 months old. 6 months of accounting, gone. Imagine for a second what that means. 6 months of invoices, of payments received, of tax remittances, of bank reconciliations, of payroll data. Rebuilding all of that by hand. That is weeks of work. Thousands of dollars in accounting fees. And you never recover everything. There are always gaps, missing data, errors that keep piling up. With Forge Tech, an automatic backup is created every 3 hours. Automatically. Without you having to think about it, without you having to click on anything. Every 3 hours, a complete copy of your data is saved to a separate, secured location. The worst-case scenario. The absolute worst. You lose 3 hours of work. Not 6 months. 3 hours. And the restoration. A few minutes. Not a few weeks. A few minutes and you are back in business, exactly where you left off. On top of that, these backups are redundant. Multiple copies, multiple geographic locations. Because a single backup is not a backup. It is a hope. And hope is not a business strategy. A real backup system means multiple copies in different locations, regularly verified to make sure they actually work. Because a corrupted backup is just as useful as no backup at all. Forge Tech verifies the integrity of every single backup to guarantee that the day you need it, it works. No surprises. No bad news at the worst possible moment. Just peace of mind, every single day. There is another aspect that many business owners overlook. Where exactly are your data stored? This is a question with serious legal consequences. In Canada, we have the PIPEDA Act at the federal level, along with provincial laws that govern the protection of personal information. These laws exist for a reason. Your financial data, your client's information, your tax filings, all of that is protected by Canadian law. But only if your data stays in Canada. With some popular cloud-based software, especially those developed in the United States, your financial data is stored on American servers. Subject to American laws. Subject to the Patriot Act. Which means American authorities can access your data without your consent, without even notifying you. The financial data of your Canadian business, accessible to a foreign government. Does that bother you? It should. Forge Tech hosts all its data in Canada. Canadian servers. Canadian jurisdiction. Canadian laws. Your data stays here, protected by our laws, under our jurisdiction. When you do business with Canadian clients, when you manage the data of Canadian employees, you have a legal responsibility to protect that information. And that protection starts with knowing where your data sleeps at night. Full stop. Let us come back to Martin one last time. Because there was a third mistake. His password was Plumbing 2019. 4 or 5 years. The same password, everywhere, for everything. And he is not alone. The majority of security breaches start with the human factor. A password that is too simple. A password that gets reused. An employee who clicks without thinking. This is a human problem before it is a technology problem. You can have the best security system in the world. If the person behind the screen uses a weak password or clicks on a suspicious link, everything else falls apart. It is like having an armored door with a 3-digit padlock. The technology does its job, but the humans skip theirs. Forge Tech enforces strong passwords. It is not optional, it is mandatory. On top of that, the system includes protection against brute force attacks. If someone tries to guess your password by testing thousands of combinations, the account locks automatically after a limited number of attempts. The hacker is locked out. And every connection, every action inside the software is logged. Recorded. If someone connects to your account at 3 in the morning from an unknown IP address, from another country, you will know. The activity is tracked. Nothing goes unnoticed. Let us talk about mobile now. Because we live in a world where we check our accounts on our phones. At the restaurant, on the subway, while waiting for the kids at the hockey arena. It is normal. But is it secure? With Forge Tech, the mobile connection uses the TLS protocol, the same encryption protocol that banks use for their apps. But the key difference is that no data is stored directly on your device. Your phone acts as a window to view your data, but the data itself stays on the secure server. If you lose your phone at the mall, if it gets stolen in the parking lot, your accounting data is not on it. There is nothing to find. Your phone is the key, not the vault. The difference matters. Think about it. You can check your revenue while waiting for your coffee at Tim Hortons. Review an invoice in the dentist's waiting room. Approve a payment while you wait for your flight at Montreal Trudeau. All of that knowing your data is protected, encrypted, and never exposed on your device. That is freedom. That is what modern security looks like when it is done right. One final point that deserves to be mentioned is remote technical support. When you need help with your software, the support team sometimes needs to access your screen to resolve an issue. The question is how. Many companies use third-party tools like TeamViewer or AnyDesk. Generic software, not always up to date, which themselves represent security risks. Forge Tech has developed its own remote support system, built directly into the software. And the principle is simple. The Forge Tech team can never, ever access your software without your explicit permission. You must give your consent. And once the session is open, you see everything the technician does. Every click, every movement. It is transparent, visible, controlled. It is like inviting a plumber into your home. You open the door, you watch them work, and they leave when the job is done. You lock the door behind them. That is the Forge Tech philosophy when it comes to support. No gray areas. No hidden access. No backdoors. Everything is transparent, everything is consented to, everything is documented. You stay in control at every step, because it is your business and your data. Martin survived. Barely. He spent weeks rebuilding his accounting from bank statements and paper invoices found in dusty filing cabinets. He lost 8 clients who did not want to wait. His revenue dropped by 30% that year. His wife asked him if it was time to close down and find a regular job. His best technician almost left for a competitor because he could not guarantee payroll for 2 months. But Martin did not give up. He learned. He learned the hardest and most expensive way possible. And the first thing he did once he was back on his feet. He switched software. He chose a system with military-grade encryption, automatic backups every 3 hours, isolated databases for each client, Canadian hosting, and artificial intelligence to help him every day. He chose to never go through that again. You see, Martin's story is not just a technology story. It is a story about choices. The choices we make today determine whether we will be ready tomorrow. Every day you spend without adequate protection is a day you are playing Russian roulette with your business. And unlike Martin, you might not get a second chance. Cybersecurity is not a luxury reserved for large corporations. It is not an extra, a nice-to-have, an option in a drop-down menu. It is an obligation. It is as fundamental as locking the door of your shop at night. And the software you use to manage your finances, your clients, your payroll, your taxes, that is your first line of defense. It is the wall between your data and the rest of the world. Forge Tech Accounting. $149 per month. Free 14-day trial. No credit card required. Everything you need to manage your accounting securely. Military-grade encryption. Automatic backups every 3 hours. Isolated databases. Canadian hosting. Complete activity logging. Secure remote support. And artificial intelligence that works for you. Visit forgetech.ca. Take the first step. Because the best defense is the one you put in place before you need it. Protect your data. Protect your business. Protect what you have built. Because nobody else is going to do it for you.